Barron Trump poses an unexpected question to his father. Dad, is America in decline? Donald Trump's reply left not just his son but all who were present in utter disbelief, prompting a wave of introspection and doubt about their previous understandings. Barron Trump had always preferred to keep his thoughts to himself. He was tall and reserved, often taking in the world around him with a keen eye, preferring to keep his thoughts private. Yet this evening an unusual sensation lingered in the air. A burden pressed down on him. More profound and urgent than anything he had ever experienced, he lingered at the threshold of the study, reluctant to disturb his father, Donald Trump, who was engrossed in the papers strewn across his expansive desk. The atmosphere was serene, punctuated only by the gentle whisper of pages turning and the subtle ticking of a vintage clock. "Father?" Barron's voice came out softer than he had meant it to be. Trump looked up, initially distracted, but quickly composed himself upon noticing Barron's serious demeanor. "Barron," he said with a friendly tone, setting his papers aside. "Is everything okay?" Barron hesitated, grappling with his thoughts, before finally entering the room completely. "Dad, I have something important to ask you," he reiterated, his voice steadier now yet laced with doubt. Trump reclined, focusing entirely on his son. "Proceed, my boy." Barron took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts. "I've been keeping an eye on the news, observing the events unfolding across the nation. It appears that divisions among people are more pronounced than at any other time. There exists a deep sense of rage, brutality, and despair." Trump remained composed, attuned to the weight of Barron's uncertainty. "I suppose what I'm truly inquiring is," Barron continued softly, his gaze locked onto his father's, seeking comfort, "is America fading away?" The stark truth of the question lingered in the atmosphere, dense and unyielding. Trump has yet to respond. He gradually rose to his feet, made his way to the expansive window behind him, and gazed contemplatively at the city skyline. Barron observed intently, his father's unusual quietude making him feel even more uneasy. The elderly gentleman let out a long breath, remaining turned away, before he finally began to speak. "What prompts your inquiry?" Barron sensed a wave of frustration building within him, yet he compelled himself to maintain his composure. "It feels as though, no matter where I turn, the situation is deteriorating rather than improving. The nation appears to be drifting away from its core identity. Individuals are not merely at odds, they are harboring deep-seated animosity towards one another. Families are experiencing deep divisions. Friends seem unable to communicate with one another these days." Trump pivoted, examining Barron's sincere expression intently. "What are your thoughts on this? Do you believe it's fading away?" Barron paused once more, his eyes briefly falling before meeting his father's intense stare again. "Honestly, Dad, I'm not sure, but lately it seems like we're moving in that direction." The stillness enveloped the space, thick and tangible. Barron shifted uneasily while Trump remained still, watching him intently, contemplating the weight of this moment shared between father and son. Then he nodded slowly. "I have pondered that exact question, Barron." Barron's eyes opened a fraction wider, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. He had anticipated comfort, maybe even a swift rejection, but not this unguarded openness from his notoriously self-assured father. "What conclusion did you reach?" Barron inquired, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur, as if he feared the answer that awaited him. Trump moved nearer, his demeanor grave yet strangely tender. "The answer reveals itself to be quite intricate. America, my boy, is more than a mere nation. It embodies a concept, and concepts have a resilience that is hard to extinguish. They endure conflicts, challenges, and even the most profound rifts." He lingered, locking eyes with Barron. "However, they may perish if individuals forsake hope and turn away from their values." Barron breathed out gently, absorbing his father's words, experiencing a mix of solace and unease. "But how can we determine if the moment has passed?" he finally inquired, his tone laden with the weight of obligation. Trump gently rested his hand on Barron's shoulder, speaking in a tone that was both comforting and resolute. "There's always time, Barron. As long as there are individuals who hold the conviction that America is worth defending, the story is far from finished. The issue at hand isn't about the demise of America, it's about our willingness to fight for its survival." Barron experienced a swift surge of feelings, a blend of pride intertwined with persistent uncertainty, yet he realized that this dialogue was just beginning. He had countless questions lingering in his mind, and an even greater number of unspoken thoughts from his father hung in the air. Barron's words hung in the stillness of the room, imbued with the gravity of true concern. Donald Trump did not respond right away. He gazed at his son with contemplation, absorbing the earnestness reflected in his eyes, acknowledging the sincerity behind the inquiry. It wasn't a blame or a provocation, it was the genuine doubt of a youth confronting an unpredictable future. Trump took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts with care. Barron, he began gently, America has faced numerous trials in the past. Throughout history, there have been numerous moments when individuals believed the nation was on the brink of collapse, whether due to wars, economic downturns, or cultural shifts. Every generation has experienced a sense that their time marked the conclusion of all things. Yet, we remain present. Barron paid close attention, inclining a bit in his chair. Are you really inquiring whether America is on the decline? Trump pressed on, his tone calm, carrying a depth of thought that surprised many. No, I don't think America is perishing, but I do believe it's evolving, and evolution can often feel like demise, particularly when it's swift or unforeseen. He took a moment, weighing his forthcoming words with great thoughtfulness. The silence enveloped them, thickening in the air, as though the very walls yearned to eavesdrop on their exchange. The America of my youth contrasts sharply with the America you observe now, and the America you will experience as an adult will diverge even further from what exists today. Transformation can often be challenging, and at times it leads to discomfort and uncertainty. Individuals often dread the unknown, and recently there has been an abundance of complexities that elude comprehension. Barron nodded thoughtfully, taking in his father's words. Yet, if it's merely change, what fuels the anger in so many individuals? Trump let out a gentle sigh, reclining a bit in his chair, his face reflecting deep contemplation. It's out of fear, Barron. They dread the possibility of losing the values, the traditions, the identity that have provided them with a sense of safety and strength. In moments of threat, individuals typically respond by either confronting the danger or fleeing from it. At this moment, numerous individuals opt to stand and confront their challenges as they perceive no refuge to escape to. Barron pondered this in silence. His thoughts surged, sifting through the cacophony of news reports, school discussions, and the conflicting opinions of friends where ideas collided and sparked. A realm that appeared perpetually in conflict with its own essence. Trump observed the inner turmoil and leaned in, placing his elbows on his knees. However, I have a question for you, Barron. Do you believe that the essence of America's strength lies in consistently making the right choices, or is it rooted in our determination to correct our mistakes when we falter? Barron paused briefly, then responded with sincerity. Perhaps the second one? Trump acknowledged with a subtle smile. Precisely. America's strength lies not in its flawless execution. Even after a fall, it discovers a path to rise once more, imbued with greater wisdom and strength than ever before. That distinguishes the act of perishing from the process of flourishing. Barron appeared somewhat comforted, though still not entirely persuaded. The intricacy of it all continued to weigh on his mind. His father leaned in even closer, his voice softening to a calm, earnest whisper. At times, it can feel like hope in one's nation is slipping away. At times, it can feel simpler to lose trust in humanity. However, the true peril lies not in contemplating the future of America. The true peril lies in surrendering to it. Barron locked eyes with his father. Have you ever experienced the urge to throw in the towel? For an instant, a spark ignited in Trump's gaze, a fleeting recollection, a whisper of fragility. On numerous occasions, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. More often than I reveal to others. Yet, a significant thought crosses my mind. Barron sat in anticipation, the silence enveloping the room, allowing them to hear the soft rhythm of each other's breaths. He recalled the reasons that ignited his battle in the beginning. Trump said gently. For you. For what lies ahead. For the nation that provided our family with everything, regardless of how dire the circumstances appear, it consistently draws me back. Barron sensed a transformation within as a newfound clarity began to emerge. Yet, he was left with inquiries that ran deeper, more challenging than before. Father, he finally inquired, his voice barely above a whisper. Is it possible for individuals to completely eliminate their hatred towards one another? Trump's demeanor became even gentler, as if Barron had tapped into his innermost thoughts and unearthed the question he had long grappled with in solitude. Disagreement is a constant, he remarked softly. However, that kind of animosity is distinct. Where hope is absent, hate flourishes. It expands when we cease to pay attention. To overcome hate, one must demonstrate that there exists a more worthy belief to embrace. He hesitated, selecting his subsequent words with precision. Perhaps that's your role, Barron. Perhaps that's the path your generation needs to take. It is essential to demonstrate to both the nation and the globe the potential that arises when we commit to listening even amidst our differences. Barron remained still, taking in the profound significance of his father's words. Just as he was about to reply, the door to the room creaked open, capturing the focus of both individuals. Before them stood an unexpected figure, catching both off guard. A person whose mere presence would shift the dialogue in ways that neither Trump nor Barron could foresee. In that instant, the world shifted entirely. Melania stood silently in the doorway. Her expression was gentle and contemplative, unmistakably revealing that she had caught snippets of their private exchange. Her presence exuded a gentle calmness, while beneath it lay a quiet strength that had consistently characterized her in solitude. "Apologies," she murmured gently. "I apologize for the interruption, but I couldn't resist eavesdropping." Barron gazed at his mother, attuned to the silent currents of her feelings. "Mom, do you believe America is in decline?" Melania glided into the room with elegance and took her place in a chair nearby. Her gaze flickered to Donald's, a quiet moment of connection flowing between them. She focused entirely on her son, her voice calm yet soothing. "No, Barron, America is not in decline. It's painful. In moments of pain, individuals may lose sight of their true selves." She cast a fleeting look at her husband before turning her gaze back to Barron. "I arrived from another land, a place where liberty was not always assured. What I witnessed in America was a sense of hope, not flawless, but the potential for something greater." She took a moment, gathering her reflections. "The pain America feels now is undeniable. Individuals are filled with anger, fear, and a sense of division. Yet, suffering can impart valuable lessons. It reveals the areas in which we must evolve." Barron took this in, his mind swirling with uncertainty yet brimming with contemplation. "Yet it seems as though the world is in a constant uproar. It seems as though no one is inclined to hear what I have to say." Melania gave a slow, deliberate nod. "When your heart aches, it's difficult to listen. At this moment, the spirit of America is hurting. Yet, hearts mend, Barron. With ample care, time, and bravery, they inevitably find their way to healing." Donald Trump observed quietly, profoundly touched by Melania's remarks. It was a facet of her that the world seldom glimpsed, the profound empathy and wisdom she carried discreetly beneath her graceful, public facade. Melania inched nearer to Barron. "You inquired whether America is in decline. What you're truly inquiring about is whether there remains a glimmer of hope. My response is invariably affirmative. The essence of America lies not solely in its legal framework or economic prowess, but in its remarkable capacity for renewal akin to the blossoming of spring following the harshness of winter." Barron glanced between his mother and father, perceiving a shared understanding yet feeling the urge to probe just a bit deeper. "What steps should I take next? What options do I have?" Trump's voice was low yet resolute. "You transform into an individual who steadfastly clings to hope, refusing to let it fade away. You transform into a beacon, illuminating the potential within us all even when the world around us has lost sight of it." Melania nodded in accord, contributing softly. "And you transform into a person who hears even the voices of those with whom you disagree. Comprehension does not equate to relinquishing your identity. It signifies the ability to perceive others with clarity, allowing for the creation of something greater." Barron paused, reflecting on his parents' words. The dialogue had evolved into something far more profound and significant than he had anticipated. It seemed as though they had stepped into a realm of significance, a force that resonated not only with him but with the very essence of what was to come. Yet, before he could pose another inquiry, a soft knock echoed at the door once more, this time tentative, almost as if seeking forgiveness. Every gaze fixated on the entrance. There stood an unexpected figure, a visitor whose mere presence altered the entire atmosphere of their conversation. As Barron gazed at the newcomer, it dawned on him that the dialogue was just beginning and the most challenging inquiries lay ahead. Ivanka clutched her phone, her complexion wan as she absorbed the words in silence. Each passing second without her words intensified the atmosphere. Donald finally shattered the tension, his voice steady but tinged with unease. "Ivanka, can you tell me what transpired? Share with us." She raised her gaze gradually, surveying the expressions of her father, Melania, and Barron. Her voice trembled a bit as she conveyed the news. There had been an attack at a rally. Several injuries, potentially more severe. It is being suggested that there were political motivations behind it. The atmosphere thickened with an unbearable stillness. Barron's eyes grew large with fear as Melania swiftly encircled his shoulders with a comforting arm. Donald rose, a fleeting expression of disbelief intertwined with sorrow crossing his features before it was supplanted by a determined composure. Barron's voice quivered. "Could this be? Has this become the essence of America?" There was a moment of silence before anyone responded. The gravity of his words, delivered with an air of innocence, felt more burdensome than before. It was Ivanka who shattered the silence, her voice firm even as her turmoil was evident. "It doesn't have to be," she said gently yet resolutely, locking eyes with her brother's anxious expression. "This isn't the identity we must embrace. Donald took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his voice resonated with an urgency that none of them had ever encountered before. Barron, pay attention to what I'm saying. This moment will be exploited to deepen our divisions and amplify fear among us. Yet, instances like this can also serve as a reflection of our true selves and the principles we uphold. We must not allow hatred to shape our identity. Barron shook his head gently, grappling with understanding. What steps can we take to resolve this issue? It seems overwhelmingly vast, profoundly shattered. Ivanka softly placed her hand on his shoulder. We resolve it by choosing not to harm one another. This could be the turning point for America or the moment we unravel. Melania acknowledged with a grave nod. Barron, this nation has encountered shadows in the past. Conflicts, calamities, separations, yet we have persevered. Every time, individuals opted for optimism instead of hopelessness. Donald stood tall, his demeanor unwavering. This nation has consistently faced a decision, Barron. Amidst bravery and trepidation, togetherness and separation. The decision lies not in the hands of presidents or politicians, but in the choices of each individual among us. The words lingered, resonating with a weight that was both profound and reflective. Barron experienced an unusual tranquility enveloping him, even in the face of fear. He realized at this moment that the solutions were not straightforward, yet they were not beyond reach either. Ivanka's phone buzzed once more, and her expression tightened further. She glanced upward, pausing momentarily before finding her words. Additional updates are on the way. Donald locked eyes with her, fully aware that this was yet another challenge, another trial to face. Share with us. Ivanka's voice fell to nearly a hush. They want you to speak to the country, Dad. They would like you to have a conversation with Lead. Barron's heart raced. He raised his eyes to his father, whose demeanor eased just a bit as he caught sight of his son's anxious look. Donald inhaled deeply. Barron, what are your thoughts on what I should express? The inquiry left him speechless. Barron paused, acutely aware of the immense burden of his father's faith, yet he felt compelled to respond with sincerity. Share with them what you shared with me. America is not lost, but we must reconnect with our true identity. Convey that our hope remains alive. Donald took a moment to reflect, then gave a slow nod. That is precisely what I will express. Ivanka rose, gesturing towards the door. Time is of the essence. They are prepared at this moment. Donald cast a glance over his family, his gaze resting on Barron for a moment longer. No matter the outcome, keep in mind that hope ultimately prevails. As they approached the eager cameras, Barron sensed his mother's soft hand resting on his shoulder, steering him ahead. For the first time, against all odds, he sensed an undeniable flicker of hope. America was still present. It lingered, poised for rediscovery. Donald positioned himself before the camera, the lights casting a sharp glow that highlighted his features with striking precision. The team held their breath, fingers poised to mark the fleeting seconds before the moment they had been waiting for arrived. Barron observed from the shadows, breath held, heart racing as the atmosphere fell into a profound stillness. At last, the crimson light began to pulse. My fellow Americans, Donald began, his voice steady yet commanding, imbued with a profound seriousness. Today, our country confronts a moment we wished would remain in the past, a tragic act of violence stemming from rage, division, and hopelessness. There are inquiries about whether America is in decline. They inquire whether this nation we cherish, the symbol of liberty and aspiration, is diminishing. He halted, his demeanor grave. Barron observed, entranced not only by his father's speech but by the unfiltered sincerity reflected in his expression. It was not the dynamic, confrontational figure that the world had come to recognize. He was a father, a man profoundly troubled by the spirit of his country. I'll be truthful, Donald said deliberately, gazing straight into the camera, reaching into the souls of all who were watching. I find myself pondering that very question. Today, during a conversation with my youngest son, he reminded me that the solution is found not in fear or anger, but in the choices we each make. America's fate rests in our hands. We hold the power to shape her future. In every act of kindness, in every gesture of unity, and in every moment we embrace courage instead of fear, the essence of America thrives. His voice took on a gentler tone, becoming more intimate. I am addressing all Americans this evening, no matter their political views, backgrounds, or perspectives. Today's events should serve as a reminder of our common humanity rather than our divisions. The brutality we witnessed was not a display of power, it was a manifestation of fragility. True power is found in empathy, togetherness, and the bravery to mend. Barron sensed his mother's hand softly grip his shoulder. Ivanka stood beside him, her gaze locked on their father, tears shimmering as she witnessed him give the most poignant speech she had ever encountered. Donald inhaled deeply, savoring the moment. Tonight, we feel the weight of our hurt, and that hurt is undeniable, yet from this suffering arises a decision. Should we allow anger to dictate our actions, or shall we transcend it? This evening, I call upon every American to embrace healing, to embrace hope, to embrace one another. He hesitated once more, letting the gravity of his statements sink in profoundly. Our nation is not flawless, it never has been. Its potential is rooted in our commitment to improve, to learn from our errors, and to come together as a unified nation under God. Let this moment be marked not by the tragedy itself, but by the strength of our response, the day we decided to stand firm and ensure America endures. The conclusion. The room fell into a hush as Donald finished, his voice unwavering but brimming with feeling. Wishing blessings upon everyone, and may America be blessed as well. The conclusion. As the crimson glow dimmed and the lenses ceased their watch, the space filled with a soft yet heartfelt applause, team members dabbing at their eyes, visibly touched by the moment. Donald pivoted and his eyes immediately locked onto Barron's. In that quiet moment, the significance of their earlier conversation lingered in the air once more. Donald ambled back toward his family, each step deliberate and measured. Melania extended her hand, gripping his firmly, her eyes glistening with tears. Ivanka's smile was gentle, her pride unmistakably shining through her features. Yet it was Barron who advanced, his voice soft yet brimming with determination. "I appreciate you, Dad." Donald gazed intently at his son, resting a steady but tender hand on his shoulder. "No, Barron, I appreciate your reminder." Later that night, as the world responded with a whirlwind of shock, admiration, criticism, and every emotion imaginable, Barron found himself alone in his room, gazing out at the star-studded sky. He reflected on the evening, the dialogue, and the inquiries he had bravely posed. The door let out a soft creak as Donald entered, his demeanor more tender than Barron had ever witnessed. "Are you okay?" his father inquired softly. Barron inclined his head with deliberation. "I believe that's the case. Your words have been on my mind lately." Donald sat beside him, his gaze contemplative. "Was it beneficial?" Barron halted, casting his gaze once more into the night, where stars shimmered quietly overhead. "I believe it did, for the first time in quite some time. There's a sense that perhaps we'll be all right." Donald offered a subtle smile, a glimmer of relief shining in his eyes. "We shall, provided we keep tonight in mind." Barron paused for a moment, then inquired gently. "But what if individuals choose to ignore? What if they doubt?" Donald breathed out, gazing at the familiar stars above. "We continue to converse, we maintain our faith, and we demonstrate through actions, not merely words, that hope is not something to be discovered, it is something to be forged." The two remained quiet, a father and son united by an unforgettable moment. "Barron," Donald finally uttered, his voice scarcely above a murmur. "This evening, you brought back to my mind a truth I had almost forgotten. America is not defined by its structures, symbols, or political landscape, it is defined by its people. Individuals who aspire, who persevere, who seek answers to challenging inquiries like you." Barron experienced a gentle warmth enveloping his chest, finding solace in his father's words. Donald continued softly, "So always keep those questions coming, for that's how we preserve the essence of this nation." Barron locked eyes with his father, nodding slowly, finally grasping the profound weight of bearing hope amidst the shadows. Beyond the window, the stars continued to gleam, quiet observers of a night destined to transform the lives of both father and son eternally. America was not fading away, not while there remained those courageous enough to nurture hope.